I'm going to open up to the floor for questions right away. So if people have questions, while they're getting their questions, John, what about this idea between incremental and disruptive innovation? Does it take a fundamental different process to get there?
Well, the current literature on best practices suggests that if you want to do something which is game-changing, a kind of a nonlinear kind of disruption, you have to have a different platform with a different, almost microculture for establishing this. And of course, you know, there's a great tradition of this with the Lockheed Skunk Works, where you know you couldn't do the edgy stuff in the mainstream environment, so you created a counterculture. And you know, ever since, whether it's the Macintosh or you know the IBM PC, or you know, there's hundreds of examples. And so I think that what we are really talking about is reflecting the need to, if I can invoke a jazz term, find the sweet spot between the need to constantly improve the current business with discipline, and you know, this is Hannah's point about we need to be almost having binocular vision, where one eye is way out on the white space and the other eye is, you know, sticking to the knitting. And so that's a very important point, because you can't figure out where the sweet spot is by using an algorithm or analytics. I mean, that's really finger knowledge, you know, and it's leadership, I believe anyway, and it's, you know, asserting that, well, today we're overweighted in one direction, we're paying short shrift to the long term, and then reversing it, and always listening to the organization's music in a way, so that the music sounds optimal because you found that sweet spot. And so, you know, there's a host of organizational design factors that can be invoked to optimize this, but I think at its heart, you know, it's finding that sweet spot, which is the core skill.
Okay, your turn. There's the hand in the middle. Looks like it's Kara.
Hi. A question for Hannah, but also John and Rosabeth. I'm sure you have input. How do you balance, you know, I applaud for the considered index looking at the open source and, you know, the contributions that obviously will improve the innovation there, but how do you balance that with competitive advantage? And how do you see some of the innovations that you're all seeing balanced with the company's need for competitive advantage, particularly in industries where the margins are so tight?
Yeah. So it's a core question, and the short answer is I haven't got a clue, and I'm making it up as I go along. And the longer answer is, I think it's about timing. So I think it's about timing and about knowing where your self-interest is and where you're going to harvest competitive advantage. So if you take the considered index, we've taken the time to develop it and we've taken the time to test it. But the truth is, let's be very clear, the innovation that is going to get consumers excited is this. It's how my designers decide to turn the considered index into great performance product. And I bet you I can do that better than a bunch of other companies who we won't name, because I'm competitive like that. But do I want those companies to be thinking about environmentally preferred materials? Yes, I do, because guess what? This is where system change only happens when you're a collective. We need to send market signals. We need to get volumes, we need to get prices down, we need to get regulation changes, we need to see the right incentives in place. And that will enable us all to move even faster toward that end state. But I'm going to keep on being very competitive when it comes to the consumer and the products that I give to them that I want to delight them with. But I think that I've learned so much from the digital community. And these are the guys that I've looked to help me think about modeling when do you share and when do you compete. And I think that's a core set of lessons for any of us in the CSR world to think about.
So first of all, this balance of long-term, short-term, absolutely, that's always a balance. And the balance of what you share and what you keep proprietary, I think you got it absolutely right. I mean, there are certain things that have to be industry-level innovations in order for a company that's an innovator to be able to do it at a reasonable cost. I mean, if there are no suppliers who can supply things that are affordable and green, then you're going to pay such high costs yourself in order to get that out to your consumers that you really want everybody else to be on the same page and create a supply base that supplies everybody. One of the stories I tell is actually about a bank in Brazil, a phenomenal success story for whom their strategy was, it was basically social and environmental responsibility as a bank, and they're not they say they're not a green bank or a charity bank, but they wanted to influence the industry. So they go on industry association boards, they try to get the supply chain on board, they try to get the industry on board, they share what they're doing, and they say the competitive advantage is that they'll just be out ahead a little faster with the next idea, which is important. So it's that culture of innovation. It's not that you have a one-time really good idea. You know how to keep producing it. They're always a little behind. I won't tell the long Woody Allen story, but the punchline is all you need is a 15-minute competitive advantage. You don't have to be years ahead, and if you're just a little ahead. And so that's always a judgment in a company, but the more you can get more people trying to build stuff off of your platform, that's good for you. The more you can get other people to have to pay the same cost you do of high standards, that's good for you, and that gets the cost down. And the more you make this familiar to people in the marketplace, then it's easier to sell it. That's why the pure children's safe drinking water powder wasn't selling. Nobody really knew it. They would have been better off if there had been a competitive race with a lot of companies offering powdered water sanitation, et cetera. So there are lots of ways. Now, I've seen in the CSR community this not knowing if what's strategic and what you share, what you give away. If it's really strategic and you want to keep it closer to you, but if it's something in the community that isn't that strategic to the business, you want as many companies as possible in a coalition doing it together. So I think that's a perfect question, and your answer was really good.
So to me, this is another example of a sweet spot phenomenon. You know, there's this concept actually from the national security community called guarded openness, right, which pertains to, you know, what information should be kept close to your chest and what can be shared. And again, there is no algorithm, but, you know, if you're in a world where you keep everything to yourself, you're going to become inflexible and parochial, and, you know, certainly the way innovation works, there are no more innovation monopolies. You know, I mean, you have to be open, but you have to be open in a prudent way. I mean, you're not going to publish all of your, you know, intimate company secrets on the internet. At least, you know, one would assume not. So finding the sweet spot there is extremely important. And so that then favors, you know, so if knowledge becomes more available and there's more transparency around the opportunity set, and I think we'd all agree that the more we know about emergent needs, trickle-up opportunities, et cetera, the better, then competition favors companies. You know, so you look at Nike. I mean, Nike has speed. Nike has divergent thinking. Nike has a critical mass of creative people. Nike has, you know, I've seen them, you know, physiology laboratories and all kinds of, you know, capabilities that mean that, you know, anybody can make a shoe, but, you know, only, you know, company that's invested in certain kinds of capabilities is going to be able to develop a shoe that people want.